Today's question is, what is your darkest secret?
When I was 2, my parents got a divorce after my dad had an affair with this ugly skeleton woman. He got her pregnant when my mother was 8 months pregnant with my brother. My dad got married to this woman, and they had a little girl. My dad would have me and my sister every other weekend, or when he could be bothered. Every time I was there, his wife would bath me and play with my penis. She would tell me my dad's was so much bigger and I'm never going to get a girlfriend and that I might as well turn gay. She would throw cigarettes in the bath with me and even stick her fingers and objects that were the thing on my anus, saying she was preparing me for when I'm older. And one time I remember I was vomiting in the car. When we returned to the house, while my dad went to clean it, she would force tablets down my throat, pushing them down with her skeleton fingers, which resulted in me throwing up. She forced one tablet which was blue on me when I was 4, and I had an erection when she was bathing me and playing with me, saying the same shit she always did, and that one time even rubbed it on her vagina. This continued until I was 5 when my dad decided he didn't want to bother with any of us. Throughout my life, I was insecure about myself and had no value on sex or my body. I lost my virginity at 13 and had sex with 40 people by the time I was 16. I was always insecure about my penis size, my looks, who I was, no matter how many people complimented me. However, to this day, I never let anyone go near my bum, not even touch a cheek. I buried my insecurities between other people's legs, which boosted my confidence for that day. But the next, I had to find another, if not the same person. I became a piece of shit, a user, a manipulator, a liar, and this evil person. However, I always wanted to help others who were down. About 3 years ago, I got someone pregnant, and we went through a rough patch, as we only knew each other for 3 months, and in a desperate need for guidance, stupidly I reached out to my dad, hoping he could help guide me. Well, he invited me over, and we had a chat. He told me his wife was dying and was bedridden and has been suffering for years. 5 minutes later, I heard footsteps, and it was her. An overwhelming feeling of fear came over me. I was speechless. I began to shake, and I felt I needed to cry. Her appearance was skeleton-like before, but she must not have weighed more than 4 stone at this point. She said to me, "Oh my God, it's you, my name. Where have you been hiding all these years? You were my favorite. You used to love me bathing you." At this point, I felt physically sick, and I left without a word. My daughter was born in December 2020, and my dad turned up to my house to give me money for the baby. I didn't accept it. He didn't give me anything for 21 years, and I didn't need anything now. Well, a few days later, New Year's Eve, I believe, the witch had died. And so much trauma was lifted off my shoulders, so much pressure and anger, gone. It was like I was born as someone else. I became this confident and happy person, and to this day, I believe that someone cured her for the things she did to me, and the birth of my daughter was the last seal which needed to be broken to end her. I'm 29 now and a manager of a care home for people suffering from mental health as well as learning difficulties. With the residents I support, I help them through explaining how I felt when I was suffering, but without saying I felt that way. More of a third person, I guess. I have only told this to my current partner, mother of daughter and twins on the way, and my therapist. When I was a junior in my undergrad, my girlfriend at the time was drugged and raped at an unrecognized frat house off campus. It was her friend that found her passed out in the guy's room while he's downstairs partying after raping her. Essentially, the entire party was drugged as they were putting benzos and probably Vicodin/Percocet in the jungle juice. This frat was actually in the news for sexual abuse allegations like the year before. She didn't tell me at first, but was suddenly disinterested in sex. A week or so later, I was told what happened. She felt guilty, like she cheated. She kept calling herself a dumb by *% and crying. I couldn't move at first. I eventually encouraged her to go to the police or at very least the dean of students, to which she did not. And I respected her decision and did not push. She essentially just wanted to make sure I was okay and be done with it. Sweep it under the rug. Not deal with unwarranted shame. Imagine that? Checking in on me and how I was feeling about it. I was silent at first. Frozen. I would say, but not from shock. I was just sitting there in extraordinarily deep thought, machinating. I'd been to this house a few times at my years there. It was a pretty well-known party house. The guys change, but the house doesn't. I should preface this by saying I used to, and vaguely still do, have a rage problem. Not loud rage, just very determined rage. If you've heard the expression of seeing red, it's like that at first and then almost honed. I barely even remember what happens the first couple of seconds when I see red. But I know what follows is direct and effective. Long story long, I covered anything identifiable. Gloves, mask, hoodie, sweatpants, and a different pair of clothes underneath for after I left. I even bought a used pair of shoes that were used that night only. I don't believe cell phone tracing was huge back then, circa 2011, but I still left the cell home. I didn't even bring my keys. I hid them closer to my house as this was pretty far. Had to walk at least 3 miles to their house with a cut-in-half bed along my leg. Broken around 3/4 am in the middle of the week, Tuesday/Wednesday, don't remember. Sprinted straight up to his bedroom with the bat and broke as many bones as possible in about 15 seconds. His teeth are definitely fake, and I'd wager he's infertile as well. He was unconscious for most of it after the first 2 swings. Ended up knocking a roommate down the stairs and stopping him a little bit by accident while running out too. But I consider that acceptable collateral damage to a rape accomplice. It's actually pretty incredible how long and fast you can run when you really want to flee something. Nobody knows. My girlfriend at the time found out he got pretty horribly assaulted, but I feigned disinterest with a quick, good. To my knowledge, he never came back to campus. At least not for 2 additional years I was there. I'm not sure if it was directly, indirectly, or circumstantially related, but the house stopped being the party house and everyone moved out over the next semester or so. Sigma Alpha Mu Sammy was no longer a scene on campus. I believe they just kept to frat brothers and sorority sisters after that. That being said, I have zero remorse for my actions. In the words of Hunter S. Thompson, I hate to advocate drugs, alcohol, violence, or insanity to anyone, but they've always worked for me. Gentlemen, just know that things that seem trivial to the tribe may have consequences beyond your control. Don't violate your moral compass for watery friendships. This is the first time I've ever written this or really thought about it in detail for over a decade. When I'm reflecting on how I feel about what happened, if I'm being honest, I feel satisfied. Just thinking of his sleepy, scared shock when I rammed his door open is a look I won't forget. I don't think of it often, but it's clear as day right now. I think of this person hopefully having a very difficult, wasted potential of a life. And then I think, good. In my mind, if you've stolen a person's ability to feel safe and secure in this world, you've already sold your rights away. I was sexually assaulted when I was in 2nd grade and abused daily by my alcoholic mom till I went to college. This led to 3 of my darkest secrets. I pissed myself till I was in middle school. Straight up would piss myself at recess or in my seat because I couldn't stand the idea of being left out when I went to the bathroom. Mostly because at home, if my mother was awake and I went to the bathroom, she would fall asleep and I would be alone again. Even if she was drunk, I would rather sit in my own piss on the floor next to her and listen to her mumbling than go to the toilet. After I was sexually assaulted by the man my mother was cheating on my dad with, I became extremely hypersexual. I felt ashamed as I got older because I would get turned on to CNC porn, but knew these situations were awful as it had happened to me. Ironically, I was assaulted again in high school and it in fact did not turn me on. As fucked as it sounds, I think that helped my mental state a bit since I realized I was only okay with the fake porn stuff and not anything remotely real. Anyways, I never told anyone this because I felt like most people had the opposite reaction after being assaulted and I was terrified of getting canceled for it, lol. When I was in high school, I was a star athlete in a very affluent school district. The abuse from my mother was at its peak during this time, and at some point it became very, very hard for people to even pretend they didn't know what was going on. Finally, my coach pulled me aside one day and told me basically that the jig is up and everyone knows that I'm being horribly abused and neglected and that he was gonna call CPS. I normally was a smiley, joking individual at school, but I literally dropped to my knees in front of him and pressed my face into the mud and begged him not to. That was the first and only time I had ever done something like that in my life. I begged him to not call CPS because my absentee father told me he'd pay for my college and grad school in full, and I didn't want to lose it. He cried and rubbed my back while I sobbed in the mud. He didn't call CPS. My dad, in fact, did pay for my college in full, and now I'm going to medical school, hence the throwaway. My uncle molested me when I was around 6 or 7. I think because I didn't fully understand what was happening at the time, and then experienced some other traumas as I was growing up. It wasn't until my early 30s that I remembered/realized it. I was literally just relaxing at home alone playing a game on my phone, and all of a sudden, I just spoke out loud, "OMG, Uncle XXXX molested me." It really messed me up for a while when the memory came back. It makes me sick now, and I also know it messed me up back then. I felt shame and knew I had to keep it a secret, and remember crying alone at night as a kid, understanding I had to save my feelings for when noon was around. I started researching false memories, hoping I could convince myself I made it all up, but I didn't. I remember remembering it afterwards as well and feeling shame about it. And I always had a vivid memory of that night up until that part. We stayed up playing rummy in his bed. It was competitive and fun. He was drinking whiskey. He offered me to try it, but I couldn't get past the smell. At one point we realized it was 4 a.m., but the story goes on to him making it a strip game and telling me that family can kiss each other anywhere. I remember crying from guilt because I refused to kiss him back and he acted hurt about it. The next day he yelled at me for bringing up that we were playing cards and told me to stop being so obnoxious and that we were never playing cards again. Since remembering again, I started skipping our traditional family get-togethers and later avoiding him when I did start to go. Every encounter we've had since feels like he knows I know. The last couple times I've seen him, I've been able to talk to him normally again, but I've made comments or started topics I knew would make him uncomfortable and he's left the conversation. I'm honestly not sure if I'm intentionally doing it. I know he's scared I'm going to tell someone. I've only told my partner and therapist. I don't regret telling my partner, but he hasn't been to a family get-together with my uncle since. If I believed he may have done this to someone else, I would speak out. But I honestly believe it was most likely a crime of opportunity during a dark time in his life, and one he hopefully regretted soon after. It was an unlikely scenario that led to me staying overnight at his house without my siblings or parents, and he was going through a divorce and drinking heavily. I know that he was abused by a teacher growing up, which it seems relevant, like it may have increased the odds that he would try it himself. He's not a great person in my opinion. I think he's narcissistic and manipulative, and that he's been verbally abusive to his family, but I really don't think he did it again, nor does he have opportunities to be alone with children. I'm not keeping the secret for his sake. I just see no benefit to burdening any family members with this information, and it would not make me feel any better if they knew. It would destroy them to know it happened to me, let alone by their uncle/sibling/son. But I do really want to confront him privately. I just want him to tell me, face to face, that he never did it before or again. I don't want or need an apology because there's nothing in the world that would make me forgive him. And this is the end of today's video. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to comment an anecdote or experience similar to the topic of the video. Leave your like, share if you liked the video, and lastly, don't forget to activate the little bell so you don't miss any of our daily videos. Bye-bye.